You're listening to The Extraction, conversations on the systems and strategies behind dental practice growth with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman. Hello and welcome back to The Extraction Podcast. Your co-host Kyle here along with my co-host and the CEO and co-founder of TeamCare, Colin Ambler. Today we're joined by Matt Peterson from Cain Watters. Matt is a financial planner with a background in management consulting, and Cain Watters has spent decades helping dentists connect strong practice performance to real long-term wealth building. In this episode, we discuss what separates a practice that looks successful from one that is actually building wealth, the concept of 3-to-1, why the average Cain Watters client relationship lasts around 20 years, and the number one thing owners can focus on to improve their financial position. Matt, welcome to The Extraction. I don't know who to talk to at Cain Watters, but I think your title is financial planner, and I feel like that's really an injustice to how important you are to the organization. It's a little misleading. Like he's just another guy cog in the wheel at Cain Watters, but you do a lot of really important things there. And so we're really excited to have you on the pod today. Cain Watters, for those that are listening and might not know, has been focused specifically on dentists since 1984 with integrated services across financial planning, accounting, tax, wealth management, insurance, retirement plans, and practice transitions. I think maybe we could also add software in there somewhere because Matt has been instrumental in the partnership that TeamCare has with Cain Watters. Matt, I know went to Notre Dame, studied accounting and finance. So maybe when you were 8 years old, that was your dream, but kind of curious to hear how you got into the business of dentistry. Usually not something that we all dream of doing when we're young, but what brought you there?
It's funny you say that. I appreciate the intro and hearing you talk about Cain Watters. It does sound like a long list of things that we do. It's funny. I think how we've gotten to that point is we basically just realized that business owners need help in so many different areas. And so what we've kind of done, it's almost naturally grown to kind of fit the need. And I kind of want to get back to that in just a second. You had a question about kind of how I got into this field. The reality is that I had no intention of getting into this field, right? So coming out of school, it was, okay, I want to work in consulting. And so I worked in management consulting for darn near a decade, helping, the Fortune 500 companies and their finance operations and looking at new ventures there and, process improvement,
KPMG, big time
yeah,
business.
yeah. And so that was, I truly loved my experience there because not only was it like, hey, you're going to do something new with the new business, it was, hey, listen, we've got millions of dollars riding on this for this company. You kind of need to be good at your job as fast as possible. So you need to get up to speed real quick on the situation. Okay. And that was great. It was such a mental training ground for me. And then COVID hit and I said, I can't, because I was traveling every week and I just had our first kid, and I'm like, I can't do this to him, right? Like, I'm never going to see the kid except on the weekends. It's not for me. And so Cain Watters reached out and said, listen, you've got this consulting background. Why don't you, have you thought about kind of working with business owners, small business owners, especially dentists? I'm like, financial planning? I'm doing management consulting. It's kind of different. But then to your point, Kyle's like, they walk through everything they do. And I thought, man, this is not just financial planning. This is not just looking at Roth IRAs. This is holistic of understanding someone's business, which is truly the engine for most dentists of saying, how do I take this engine that I have? I go to work every day, and how do I make sure that my financial goals for the next 50, 60, 150 years, right? If we're talking about generational wealth, how do I get there? And I'm like, oh, okay, now we're talking, because now we're going to take kind of the skill set that I had of looking at a business, consulting with it, but then also connecting the dots through personal financial wealth and wealth management and investments, which is kind of a personal passion of mine. I'm like, I get to marry those two. This is fantastic. So that's kind of what led me here. And then when I started really diving deep into the dental industry, which, at the time, like you don't really hear about that in college, right? But you hear about all these other industries, tech, things like that. And then you get to dental and you're like, holy cow, man, this is the motherlode. It has everything you could possibly want, from client facing to hard sciences to tech to people management. Like, it is truly a wide ranging industry. But the biggest thing there is, there's no business training. You might have, some doctors who took MBAs and have had a second career, or they've really grown their skill set to managing, 10, 20, 30 locations. But for the most part, a lot of these dentists are doing this for the love of the game, right? The business aspect of it is secondary. So realizing that we have people that we can help, that is absolutely the best part of it, is seeing just the connection you build with clients, the ability to effective change on the business side to start, or the tax side, or wherever, that has a material impact to how their personal day-to-day life is lived. Oh my gosh, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than that. So I know I took your one question, I ran far with it, but
No, that was
it's just I got a lot of passion for
that
it.
was perfect,
We
Matt.
love
And
that.
one question before I let Colin jump in. I know he's chomping at the bit. Is kind of natural segue off of that. From your seat at Cain Watters, what separates a practice that looks successful from one that is actually building wealth?
That is a great question. You know, it's funny. We look at this so much from a numbers perspective, right? We see, okay, what's your top line? What's your direct expenses? You know, how much are you paying your team? How much are you paying for supplies? How much is your rent? What are you reinvesting in the business? What's your overall net profit, or EBITDA, which has become the buzzword in the industry over the past 5 years or so. And I think it is the knowledge base that you have set up a system that can run, right? The one thing I recommend to my clients is always to play the top of their license, right? Do the things that only they can do. There's only one dentist, right? Or for one doctor practice, right? Can we delegate other items or set up systems to where the stress level of running a dental practice is very high, right? I got to do the procedures. I got to manage the team. I got to work on marketing. Well, ultimately, the buck stops with you, right? As the owner, you're accountable to those people. But that doesn't mean you have to have the responsibility. And so I think the best practices that I've seen have set up systems to where the doctor can check on the end result. Are we meeting the metrics that we need? I think that's probably where TeamCare can come in quite a bit. Can we set up the metrics to where I know that we're meeting what we need to do, but also I'm not the one having to do it, so that I can focus on my patients specifically, which is what I'm here to do.
So, I mean, I love all this build up, and yeah, I am chomping at the bit, Kyle. Thank you, as always. Matt, I mean, everything that everyone said is totally 100% right. Matt's awesome. Been a part of the team care, been a part of Cain Watters, and probably like, I mean, just a really good guy. Plays pickup basketball, plays softball, coaches his kids
Very,
t-ball.
very poorly. All of those three, very poorly.
You know, but we've spent a bunch of times. We've gone out to dinner and stuff like that, and I think you're really down to earth. And everyone I've spoken to, that are your clients, absolutely love you and embrace you as part of their team. And I think that's a little bit maybe a segue where team care comes in. I think we lean into that pretty hard with the client management aspect of. I think it's like, to your point about a lot of these business owners that are dentists being a little bit like they need support on the business side. I think that your role as like a, not you directly necessarily, but Cain Watters, any advisory stake, it's like that's a really important member of the team. Like you guys are a second pair of eyes and trusted with their future financial prosperity and freedom. You know, one of the things I'd like you to maybe talk about from a Cain Water side, I'm not fully educated on it, and maybe you can shed some light, is the concept of 3 to 1, maybe,
Yeah.
and this as an investment, a vehicle, or maybe just a strategy on how to build wealth. I mean, Cain Watters, like you talked, I mean, the list goes on about the services, and there's so much that is into it. It's not just one thing. It's not a magic bullet. But I think for the dentist that, you know, and we preach about it so much, it's like the systemization. Let's say you get to those levels, you know, what do you do with the profits, the money? How do you set that up for the future so that it might be generational wealth? I think Cain Watters, for those that don't know, is the best in class. 100%. Anyone that's in the dental industry knows Cain Watters. You guys oversee thousands of clients, and you don't get to oversee thousands of clients without people having an amazing experience all those times, and the retention of it. But I think, you know, Kyle mentioned, I think it's been going since what, 1988 or something,
We're at 40
and
years. So we
40
just hit
years.
40 years this year. We're up to 3,500 clients and a little over $5.5 billion of assets. So to your point, we're talking big numbers, right? And so part of what I have really enjoyed about kind of the philosophy is how we try to keep it as simple as possible, right? Because the best systems are only the ones that are repeatable. So you mentioned, Colin, you talked about 3 to 1. Really, our founder, Daryl Cain, he came up with that. Really, it's not a new concept. What it is a way of relating concepts that we're all familiar with, right? Compounding growth. That, you know, tangentially, everybody knows what that is. But if you can put it in a way that people can get it, all right, now I can actually incorporate it in my life and I can live it, right? And so the idea is that if you're saving $1 every year, and eventually the return you make on that dollar equals another dollar. So I'm saving $1, I get $1 return. That's 1-to-1, right? Again, not that complicated. If I keep going, I save that dollar. Eventually, my return is $3. So I have reached compounding growth. My money that I'm saving every year is working harder than I am, right? And we'll always say the first person to 3-to-1 wins, because at that point, the snowball effect of that compounding growth is such where it is exponential, right? Money grows exponentially, not linearly. And I think our goal with working with our clients on the business side, we could have just said, hey, you know what? When you show up with a certain amount of money, we'll work to invest in that. And there's a lot of good wealth managers that do that. Well, we have taken a step and say, let's go beyond that. Let's look at your taxes. Let's look at your financials. Let's look at your practice, because if I can find a way to generate a few extra bucks or a lot of extra bucks on the practice side, on the taxes side, that frees you up to save a little bit more. So instead of saving that $1, maybe you're saving $10, $100, $100,000 a year, right? And once you get to that point, all of a sudden it very quickly becomes, cow, I didn't realize how quickly it could grow, because all I'm focusing on is my day to day. And because of the systems I've put in place, the day to day allows me to save this amount of money, live my life, and then in 5, 7, 10 years, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much that money had grown. That's kind of ultimately our goal, is to simplify our clients' lives as much as possible so that they don't even realize how much they're saving.
Yeah. And I think that's super powerful. I mean, and needless to say, it's like start early. I mean, the biggest piece of that is the time value of money, right? I think it's like when you start that process early and you get in a good rhythm and it's part of your routine and the money's getting pulled out. Like my brother-in-law, Richard Salemi, has been with Steve Cain's for probably 30 years. And I've seen Richard's practice go up and down through the test of time, COVID and stuff like that. And he's always abided by the Cain Watters philosophy, and he's always been protected. Like it's been really great to see kind of the magic of what really good financial planning does for like the security of your life, your family, your business, etc.
Well, I've met Dr. Chalemi, and it's always fun. I think half the firm knows him at this point. He's a character. But what I think I love is, like, our clients stick around, right? The average wealth management client is with their advisor less than 5 years. I think our average client period is 20 years.
Wow.
And it's because, again, we touch so many different areas. It's not just the practice. It's not just taxes. If we can connect the dots for our clients, again, it allows us to see them through all these different phases of their life. And so a lot of the original clients or clients that have been around for 20, 30 years, they're well into retirement days, right? They're into estate planning and passing on to the next generation. And, we'll talk to them. It's like, well, are you guys going to be around? It's like, man, we've been around for 40 years. We're planning to go for another 140 years, right? Yep. So we will be here for your families. And I think that's the beauty of it, is because we can help them in so many different aspects of their lives. Their clients realize that we truly are a fiduciary, which is what we are. And then why wouldn't they want their family to help us? So I think that's ultimately our goal, is to help clients the same way the doctors, they want to help their patients. And so why do you want to help the patients? Because if I can help them when they are 18, and then they come back when they're 80 to the same practice and the same systems and the same care is there, then they feel taken care of their whole life.
Matt, I want to ask you a question regarding best practices that a dentist could take tomorrow, or maybe this quarter, using softball and basketball kind of as a loose metaphor. If someone were to come to you and say, hey, how can I become a better basketball or softball player tomorrow? You might say, do 100 free throws. It's going to make you probably increase your shooting percentage, or go hit the batting cage. Probably going to help improve your hand-eye. One thing that could be analogous, an action that every dentist or business owner could take to improve their practice's financial position.
I would say it is having a good sense of where this practice makes their money. So, meaning, what I mean by that is you cannot, I've yet to see a practice, with very few exceptions, be a little bit of everything to everybody, right? And so you can be successful doing anything, but you have to be good at it, right? And so understanding kind of what the practice protocols are, what's the practice MO, and then leaning into that, right? If you are extremely good at managing a large hygiene population, but you know what? you're not really an implant specialist. Like that's just not your game, right? Don't go chasing the all on X's. If you say, you know what, I'm better to have manage a large hygiene team. On the flip side, if you have, extremely good technical skills, not that all dentists don't, but let's say you're on that end of the spectrum and you say, I really don't want to talk to people about how their family's doing. I really want to just come in. I want to make sure that their implants are phenomenal. Well, then why are we chasing 4 or 5, 6 hygiene chairs, right? So I think understanding where you're going to be successful relative to your peers, I think is number one. And the reason I start there is because that ultimately relates to top line, right? Make yourself successful at what you can be successful at, and revenue is always going to be the greatest impact. We can talk about chasing savings on supplies or, am I paying my people enough? That's all important stuff. But if you're trying to operate outside of your zone of excellence, it's going to be too stressful and that business is going to struggle.
Yeah, that reminds me of we were talking sports, and I played attack. My job was to catch the ball and put it in the back of the goal. And any time that I got crossed over the midfield line and had to play defense, it was bad news.
Exposed.
So I knew my game. I got to get back over to the offense
Yeah.
side. I think knowing your game is a big deal. As it relates to maybe some of the TeamCare stuff, we've worked to connect our analytics to maybe almost hundreds of your clients now and growing population. And I think I'm most impressed by two things. I mean, one, to the point of knowing your game, I think the visibility, there's a lot to look at, right? It's like, where do you look? And I think that maybe before TeamCare, you can tell me I'm right or wrong with this, that some of the process that you guys would have internally would be to call the client, say, hey, Doc, can you export me your XYZ reports out of your EagleSoft, out of your Dentrix, out of your whatever? And then you guys would kind of interpret that into some spreadsheets and try to produce some trends and some insights and give better information about what's going right, what's going wrong. And I would imagine, just from my own practice management experience, that sometimes that's a limited scope. And some of the stuff we do at TeamCare gives we consume all of that data and we put it on leaderboards for individuals, provider reports, production, collections, accounts receivable. I think one of the most important things in your role is kind of like directing attention, kind of like you're saying, where like there can be 20 different things, but what's the highest leverage place to focus that's going to give the doc, and maybe to your point on deciding what to do, equally important is deciding what not to do and
Yep.
where to focus your attention.
I'm laughing over here because I got about a million stories I could tell. I mean, I think ultimately the two things that I heard most when we would start to ask questions about, statistics or underlying data in the practice was, I don't know, or how do I get that report? Right. And ultimately it was frustrating for us because you try to say, okay, well, give me an EagleSoft report showing what insurance companies you've been utilizing because we've our reimbursement rate is too low. We're giving up too much on these insurance cuts. We should probably talk about cutting insurance. Which insurances are you utilizing? I don't know. Okay. What have you built out in the past 6 months? I don't know. Okay. And so it's something as simple as that. And I'm sure some of your audience will be like, okay, well, I know how to get that report. But so many of your peers don't. Right. And so our ability to advise, it was almost like every consult was different. Every meeting with our client was different just based off of the information that they could provide us. And so
Yeah.
if we could get to the point of saying, okay, hey, let's see your procedure mix, right? How many times you hit this code? How many times you hit, that code? What's the production level? Like now you're talking about nitty gritty details. And all of a sudden now you have a discussion about how your treatment coordinator is talking to their patients and presenting a case based off of just the codes that have been hit. Whereas before, if you can't get access to any of that information, now we're talking about what production's down. Why? I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
like you're stymied just by the lack of ability to grab data or the ability to grab consistent data every time.
To check up on it periodically, right? It's like every time you got to call the doctor and get the next batch of reports. I think in my experience, you can probably agree, is it's not necessarily the doc's first look either. And they work 40 hours a week seeing patients. That's where I feel like there's such an instrumental role of you in this mix where it's like you're their second set of eyes. It's like a doctor doesn't trust their office manager with their necessarily with their accounting, their QuickBooks, their profit, their investing, right? It's like you're a major part of that doctor's team, the right hand man in so many ways, in helping be their guide to financial freedom.
Perfect example of that. So client yesterday, they're on TeamCare, had a call with them. They're up over what we're projected for them for the year because I was able to pull this up. So rather than saying, hey, how's it going? Practice is going pretty well. Okay, what does that mean, right? What have collections been? Oh, let me get that report for you. So it takes 5 minutes for them to run that report. I've already seen that they're up for the year. I know that we've been on the fence about can we fund some additional retirement savings. So I know we can do that. I also know that we probably need to make an adjustment on the tax payment. Rather than waiting until April or later of next year to
Wow.
make a tax payment, now we've been able to say like, hey, we need to start putting some of that money away because in 2 months we're going to make an extra $10,000 tax payment. We don't
Amazing.
get that. We don't get that unless we're kept up to
Proactive,
date. Exactly
right?
right.
Wow. Yeah. And we, on this pod, yes, it is the extraction hosted by TeamCare, but we really try to be mindful about not doing too many hard sells of the software because we could talk until the cows come home of how great
Sure.
TeamCare is. But
Sure.
really, the Cain Watters and TeamCare partnership is great because if you're a business owner in the dental space and you know about Cain Watters, and it's like having a fractional CFO that really has your best interests in mind. And those folks, they need tools to help make them better because it can be a real pain in the ass to extract data and to get insights from it. But TeamCare is doing that. And if you're interested in working with Cain Watters, if you do work with them, you will, by virtue of working with them, get access to TeamCare, which also has a lot of really cool tools that practices can use on a day-to-day basis. It's not just guys behind the curtain pulling levers like Matt that can really use it. It's everyone, and patient facing and front office facing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that my goal is for as many clients of Cain Watters to be onboarded to TeamCare. Because again, if the more we can have access to that data in real time, the better guidance we can give, the better ability for us to see the same thing. And so advisors, I think so you go back to my history, right? The biggest issue with biggest companies is having people at different parts of the company see the same data, right? What's the one version of the truth? If I'm seeing something and you're seeing something completely different, it's hard for us to go in the same direction on what we should be doing if we can't even get to that part. So I think that the ability to standardize and have access to the same data or what have you, I think that is where it is invaluable for our clients. So I'm a big fan of the
Yeah.
ability to, basically go above that practice management system and be able to extract the data in a way that's easy to consume and then even easier to then implement of what the next steps are.
Amen. And one of the things I want you to briefly talk about as we're coming up on time here is yes, team care is very embracing to like all roles. It's like we were started inside of a practice and it's kind of ascended up to be inclusive of, advisor, a coach, a CFO like
Yep.
yourself. I think that's well put, Kyle, a fractional CFO. That feels good. But one of the side projects that has been going on with Matt and I has been sort of this bigger data benchmarking macro trends. When you're Cain Waters and you're the steward of 3,500 dental clients, people start to ask maybe a different set of questions. And I think Cain Waters makes an incredible publishing of the state of the industry. I don't know if it's quarterly or annually or both, but it's kind of this look of they have a unique perspective on having so many clients, what's going on in the industry, what's going on in ortho, specialty, oral surgery. How does one doctor that's a single dentist, 5-chair operatory place in Texas compare to other lookalike practices, and how am I doing against those other people? And if they're doing well, what are they doing well? We've kind of had this big data side project that's moving, that's super cool. So
Yeah.
I'd like to just comment on the state of dentistry and how you guys look at your role. I think you guys are really authorities in having kind of like the guidance for the entire industry that people really invest like their mind in.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Colin. And it is absolutely, I mean, I had a conversation with our data scientist on the floor below me right before I came up here, right? It's like, where do we go from here? And can we start to, it's like, who has access to this data, right? So you have insurance companies, you have other people that frankly, may or may not be in the dentist corner. And I think ultimately that's why I am so passionate about getting that overarching national, regional, state view of dentistry on an ongoing basis, because the more data you have access to, the better off you can be as an industry. And right now, unfortunately, like, the folks that have access to it can sometimes be in an adversarial position to the owners of the
Many
business.
times.
Right, many
Yes.
times. Right. So if we can be, if we can be in the dentist corner of saying, like, here's what's trending. It's not just you, or most of the time it's that, right? It's like, oh my gosh, is my business failing? No, it's not just you, right? We've
Right.
had, and then being, financial planners and wealth management, we can connect that to the overall economy of saying, like, hey, listen, this is actually one of the trends we're seeing. Inflation is up. People see, say, orthodontic treatment as a luxury good. They're pulling back on that to pivot, get that case acceptance back up. We maybe need to extend treatment a little bit longer, right? Or you're seeing more GPs place implants. We can see that based off the procedure mix over the past couple of years. If you're a periodontist, maybe you need to lean into more gum disease work to have that moat still, or how do you combat that from a quality of implant placement? Again, all these things, it's like you connect data, but data is only good as what you get, which is why, frankly, I've been loving the TeamCare relationship. But then two, data is almost good as what your next steps are, right? And I think that's ultimately where the role that we help play with our clients is.
I love it. Matt, one more question, quick one. It could be like a 1 or 2 sentence answer, but what is one big myth that dentists still believe about money?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. My glib answer is that real estate is passive income. We get that question a lot.
Nice.
And frankly, it's because of the manual nature of dentistry, right? Dentists have to work so hard with their own hands to produce any dollar of dentistry in the moment that they're out of the practice, unless they have hygiene or an associate, they're not making any money, right? And so the thought of having real estate as passive income is obviously attractive.
Is that residential properties or their own
Residential, commercial, just whatever. I mean, it's and like I said earlier, you can make money doing anything, but you got to know what you're doing. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
real estate is oftentimes a full-time job itself. So I think, to me, personally, I had several clients come up to me lately about, I want to get into this. I'm like, hey, just so you got to know what you're doing before you get into it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. We kind of switched. We had our old house that we tried to rent out for a little bit, and you turn into like a maintenance man. You got to, like, the washer's broken, and you're fighting this thing to get like $500 on top of the
Right.
mortgage. It's like you can spend your time doing a lot better stuff, like, with your time.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Well, it was a great answer. Well, I guess we'll start to wrap up a little bit. I think we've been so impressed with Cain Watters, and I've been down to your facility at least 5, 6 times.
Yeah.
It's an amazing facility. When you guys do your consult days, for the audience that doesn't know out there, this is like an all day thing that you sit down with your clients and you talk about everything from the practice performance to your current investments to your future path, your savings, your kids, your tax law, your bookkeeping. Like, you're exhausted by the time you get out of there, but you feel really supported that there's people that are looking at the stuff that you don't always want to look at. And so, and you're in there and there's maybe 30, 40, 50 dentists that are in there with you doing it at a time. And it's just electric. It's buzzing and everyone's talking at such a high level. It's like just a really exciting atmosphere
So
to be
Fridays
part of.
Fridays are one of my favorite days here, because most dentists, unless you're maybe a periodontist, you're off on Fridays, and so Fridays are our busiest days. And man, when it is packed, I mean, it truly feels almost like a concert, because you got people from all over the country. They're like, oh, hey, I know you, I saw you before, and so they're trying to schedule their next meeting with people that they don't even really know except through Cain Watters to get there in the same day. I had one client tell me, it's like, oh man, did you know that so and so was out there? I'm like, yeah, he's been a client forever. It's like he's a legend at this university. And so it's just so fun to watch that connection. But to your point, like, it does feel like a buzz, and
Yeah.
it is just so much fun. So yes, those days are very exhausting. They're very thorough. I always call it financial confession, because there's not really anything that you can hide, right? If we're gonna go from revenue generation all the way through taxes and what you're spending, not a lot of secrets there. But to your point, by the end of the day, people feel like they've got enough to go on for until we need to talk again. So I think it's always a good feeling at the end.
Yeah, and let's not forget the incredible coffee and snack bar that's always available, and the legendary annual Cain Watters event. That's like, if
Yeah.
you think that's buzzing, it's like that's some of the most incredible party and get together that I've ever seen.
Yeah, this past February was in Nashville. Upcoming, it's in Scottsdale. So be on the lookout.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you are interested in going to party with people at Cain Watters or using them as your fractional CFO, you can check them out at cainwatters.com. We'll include that URL in the show notes. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really insightful. I know our listeners are going to love it. Appreciate you.
Thanks for your time, guys. Love being
Thanks,
here.
Matt.
You're listening to The Extraction, conversations on the systems and strategies behind dental practice growth with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman.